Hello and welcome to my Council Conversation Show. I'm Roland F. Jr., your District 1 City Councilman. Today we're going to get into an update on our paratransit operations, including the results of a recent survey that was taken. And we'll also discuss some of the projects that are shaping up throughout the city's District 1 area. Particularly interested in the roads and what we've done so far in those. My guests are experts in both topics. So we'll learn a lot today from Public Works Director Mike Gent and Public Works Business Manager David Kohlbeck. Thanks, guys, for being here today on our show. I'd like to start with you, David, if I can. A hot topic recently has been our transportation system, or lack thereof. I got some questions I'd like to ask you about that. For our viewing audience, would you just go over what our new systems are? I know there's two of them. There's something called a Right Choice, and then there's a paratransit system, which started July 1st. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, first, Councilman, thank you for having us here today. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the city's transit services. So in conjunction with that, I would like to at least first point out to our residents that we actually have 4 types of transit services throughout the city. And so briefly, the first 2, we have the 571 Express bus that leaves out of the city's park and ride between 5:30 and 6:30 Monday through Fridays, and then returns in the evening leaves downtown between 4 and about 5:25. That service there is really for the commuters, also for students that may be taking classes downtown at ASU or U of A campuses located downtown, as well as other transit riders who are interested in connecting to the grid. The second service that we offer is the Suprise Senior Shuttle, and that shuttle again operates out to our senior center over on Hollyhock. That's run by our Community Vitality Department, and that service, in order to sign up for that service, you must be going to the senior center 3 to 5 times a week. And to get signed up, you must contact that department. They'll get you on the roster and then get it scheduled.
Right. I understand that that's senior center over in Hollyhock.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me just go back for 1 minute about your direct buses to Phoenix. I understand they're very successful. And you had one, and you've got another one, and we have 2 now. 2 trips to Phoenix?
So no, actually there's 4 trips.
4 trips.
4 trips in the morning and 4 trips in the evening coming home. But the times vary, and if you want the exact time and location for pickups, there's 2 ways to get it. You can go to the web and look up Valley Metro and query on the 571, which is our express bus route system. Shows the location pickups as well as times going in and coming out in the evening. And again, what we just completed some survey update on performance and possible changes to the system. We are going to currently stick with the 4 trips, but I can tell you right now that the middle 2 trips are completely full as far as riders going in the morning, and then the early trip and the late trip are about 1/2 to 2/3 full.
Okay, now was there a discussion about changing the route?
There was a discussion, yes, sir, Councilman. There was a discussion about adding a 5th trip and then deviating the trips, 3 of the trips in the morning, down the 101 and making a stop at the Glendale Park and Ride.
Right.
But based on our riders' input, they were very staunchly against making the deviation and adding that additional trip. So those changes will not occur. They were initially thought to occur in April, and it would have been a cost-neutral shift for the city, so there would have been no additional cost.
I see.
But
the riders didn't feel they want to go.
They did not want that deviation.
Well, that was good that you got input from the riders. Yes. Rather than just making that change.
Yes,
and that
absolutely.
that was good planning.
Yeah.
So someone who's not even working in Phoenix can go there in the morning, get a ride to Phoenix, spend a day there, and then come back in the evening.
Correct.
Great.
Absolutely.
Terrific. Good.
As a matter of fact, last year when I generally try to ride that service at least once a year, I spoke with a resident who actually rides the service into downtown, makes connections, and goes and visits her family in Chandler. So she can, from the 571, get all the way over to Chandler.
Well, it's
A couple of connections.
pretty good system for people in Suprise to get down to Phoenix.
Sure.
Going back last year, I understand that there was a change in the route. If I recall correctly, some of the residents, some of the riders wanted to change the ride. It was a shorter ride, if you recall that.
Well, there was a perception, and whether it was true or not, the perception was that coming out on the I-10 in the evening was faster. And so Valley Metro and the contractor that holds that bus contract were able to shift that route without adding any additional cost. So all of the trips in the morning go in on Grand Avenue. All of the trips in the evening come back out on the 10 and up the 101.
Now, get back to Suprise, was it true that it was a shorter route, or just a perception?
Oh no, the mileage is clearly longer by going on the I-10, but it is quicker.
It's quicker.
It is quicker.
Okay, good.
And what was neat there, Councilmember, is that the riders themselves united and communicated very clearly as a large, cohesive group, saying we prefer this, and of course we were able to assist them with Valley Metro to arrange that to happen ongoing.
Right. And then, of course, your Hollyhock at the senior center, you explained that. How is that working out? I understand now, I guess Transdev is the administrator of that particular ride?
Correct.
And they go to people's homes and pick them up and bring them to the senior center?
Yes, so like all of the transit services since July 1, all the service has been rocky, but over the last 2 weeks, we had another meeting with Valley Metro and Transdev. We instituted, with the change of their software, they were able to institute a couple of blocks so that the buses that provide that service for the senior shuttle are now blocked, so they cannot add additional trips to that. Good. So that's helped, and then getting a stable group of drivers to drive those two buses has also helped the system. So they're familiar with the riders, they're familiar with the routes, and last week when I spoke with Seth, and last night just before the council work session, I spoke with Joe, and they're both impressed with the changes that have occurred over the last 2 weeks.
So they're
improvement. Very encouraged that this, even though it took 5 months, it's now performing at the level we expected.
Good.
So,
okay. I interrupt you, but go on to the other transportation we have.
So the other two services that we do offer to our residents is our regional ADA paratransit, and again, that's operated by Transdev, and that will take ADA certified residents out of the city for medical and work trips across the valley. So it could be as close as Boswell, or it could be as far away as Scottsdale, and they must be ADA certified to do it. And again, we only provide the service outside of the city for work and medical. They book that through Transdev, and we do have some caps in place to help control our budget. So we have 34 one-way weekday trips each day, and we have 12 weekend trips each day. And all trips in the transit world are counted as one-way trips.
Right.
That's just the way their world evolves.
So let me get this clear. I thought there was 30 trips during the weekday. It's 34?
There's 34.
34.
Correct. Okay. 34 Monday through Friday, and then 12 on weekends and holidays. So Christmas Day, which happens to fall on Monday this year, it would be 12 trips.
It's really hard for me to believe that some of my constituents would call Transdev for a ride during the week, even well before the ride, and they were told there's no more rides available. You have an explanation for that?
Yes. I believe the issue was actually revolved around the senior bus trips. because they were mixing those riders that were riding the senior bus with people that were looking to do the regional paratransit trips. So again, unfortunately, it took longer to get there than we expected, but I believe we're there now. As a matter of fact, even on Monday, one of our residents who had been at the council meeting a couple of weeks, about a month ago, Mr. Ellison, called me and actually wanted to thank me because he was able to book a couple of trips at the very last minute.
Good.
To get that service. And so, I think those changes, while they took longer than we expected, they're there and they're happening now. So, I believe we're at the crest and hopefully over the hump here with that regional booking. Because again, there's also been an uptick in that regional transit service. So last year, we only provided about between 3,500 and 5,000 regional trips. We budgeted and planned for 10,000 trips this year. So it's well above the last year's expectation of trips.
Right. Do you know how many trips are left for this year? We're almost the end of the year now. Has all been used up?
Well, we're midway through, and we had, as part of our presentation last night, we budgeted about 2,500 trips per quarter. We were right on target. Okay, so we had 2,500 trips budgeted or planned, and we performed 2,477 in the first quarter. I expect that trend to repeat itself for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
It might tail off a little bit, but not much.
Well, I'm glad to hear about Mr. Ellison because he's one of my constituents, and he has a lot of problems trying to get around in the city of Suprise.
Sure.
He's a wheelchair user, so I'm happy that he's be able to get some rides.
Yes.
Good.
Councilmember, it's worth mentioning also that one of the challenges we had managing that cap was that these trips were mostly most beneficial for those that were taking longer trips. So more than 7 miles and outside of the city, Suprise, specifically. And so when we first started this new service in July, unfortunately, some of the riders who were taking intra-city trips less than 7 miles were using this service and using up some of those cap numbers when they could pay less and have a more convenient service through the Ride Choice program. And so it took us a while to help people identify the service that was most appropriate for them. But now that we have that, the daily cap doesn't appear to be an issue. It's also worth letting people know that if and when they are told that there's no room available for them, that cap's been met, that they should share that with us. They should let us know so that we can adjust if necessary, or maybe even help them. So, for example, some of the riders use these to get to very important medical appointments, and so we can assist, on a case-by-case basis sometimes, even after the answer was no, perhaps. But really, at this point, up to this point, we just needed to figure out why that was happening, and once we figured it out, riders, there's capacity, so there's no reason riders should be being told no today.
Right. And we're talking about capacity for transit. Let me ask you this. These people that need to get to dialysis, they have a subscription or they have to renew? Call every week or every day to get a ride, or is it something that's panned out from? No?
So with TransDev and with the regional paratransit, it's a 2-week booking period. Okay.
So they do have to call.
But once they're set for that 2 weeks, they don't have to call again. And since they're already in the system and they know that these people are taking these routine medical trips, it's very easy to put them on that renewal cycle. So
right.
they generally get that first priority.
I know there's a lot of critical rides, for instance, going to work, going to a doctor's appointment, stuff like that. But dialysis is the most important trip, I feel. You're actually really talking about life and death in that situation. And then, of course, radiation, I think, is number 2. And then, of course, work and doctor's appointments, things like that. But I know for my constituents, it's very frustrating when they book a ride and the ride is late or doesn't show up. I had a constituent tell me that when he checked the ride to see where it was, they were still looking for he's in a wheelchair. They're still looking for a wheelchair accessible vehicle. I hope that improves. I'm still getting complaints from my constituents. I have a whole file I'm documenting, and when I have a complaint or hear about a complaint, whether it's through email or telephone or a letter, I send, and you know that I send you a copy, and I send Transdev a copy, Kate Riley out there, and I also send Valley Metro a copy. So all these are documented. We want to make sure that we get immediate attention to these problems. When somebody's at a doctor's appointment and they can't make it, a lot of these doctors are booking 2 or 3 months in advance. And so it's very frustrating for that rider not to be able to get to their doctor's appointment. And most of the doctors are in Sun City West. That's where most of our medical facilities are. So they usually go to the Transdev ride because it's out of the city. But a lot of them are using now discount cab with our ride choice program and paying the extra difference, which runs up to about maybe $3 or $4, rather than just their first original $3. So that's still a problem, I think. What's your take on that?
Well, it's an interesting point that you brought up there in that the doctors are in Sun City and Sun City West. So the quirk of the system is to use that regional ADA paratransit, you must be traveling to another ADA paratransit area. While Sun City, Boswell Hospital is in a ADA certified area because they do actually have 2 buses that go out of there on a routine basis. Sun City West is not. And so the option to use the ADA paratransit service to get over to Sun City West is it's not an option. It's unfortunately or unfortunately we have to use ride choice, and that's our only service to get them there. Now ride choice, if a rider is within 7 miles of their treatment at Sun City West, it actually saves them $1 for their trip because ride choice fare is $1 less than the ADA paratransit fare. So the ADA paratransit fare is $4. The ride choice fare is $3 up to that $21 limit. So the city pays anywhere from $7 to $18 of that $21 trip, and the resident pays no more than $3.
Right.
But above that $7 trip, so again, if somebody is outside that 7 to 8 mile range, they're going to pay a little extra for that trip. You are correct.
For the viewing audience, Dave, let's define ADA area. That means it should be 3/4 of a mile of a bus stop. Correct.
Of a bus route.
And of course, you're right. Sun City West has no bus routes. Either does Litchfield Park.
Nope.
That's another area that I heard of that just recently when one of my constituents had a doctor's appointment in Litchfield Park and could not get paratransit to go there.
Yes.
So again, she took the right choice discount cab at a lot more money actually to her to get to that area.
Sure.
So there's still some really loopholes in the system. There's still a lot of places people can fall through the system.
Yeah, and that really shows the need for Valley Metro, and as we morph into maybe the next round of regional transit taxes, that or to extend the current transit tax that's throughout the county to get more of that regional bus service to the West Valley. We don't really, the city of Suprise, other than the express bus, does not have any connection to the current grid. Neither, and what Goodyear and Litchfield Park and El Mirage have is very, very limited.
Right.
So it's important that as we move forward in transit, we look at expanding the grid so that we can expand that ADA service area, and then also we have to keep an eye on what's going to change and how transit is going to change down the road.
Right. Yeah, it's unfortunate because, like you say, we're not on the grid. We're not even recognized as being on the grid.
Sure.
And someday when we get enough population, maybe it'll happen, but I know it's years away. Okay, the last form of transportation
So the last form of
Suprise.
transportation, which we were able to tap into, and it was really there to to meet the bulk of our trips. So the bulk of our trips under the old Northwest dial ride contract were into the 3 to 5 to 6 mile range anyway. And the ride choice, which is basically a revised version of the taxis program that we operated with discount cab under the old system, is just that. It allows a resident, it does two things. It allows the resident to self-book his trip, which they call whichever provider they want. So there are 6 cab providers. Through the work session last night, you saw that 90% of the trips are really still being handled by discount cab.
That's correct.
Their presence in the West Valley is pretty obvious, and so it allows them to self-book their trip directly with discount cab. They can call the same day. They can even call one time to get picked up and another time to be brought back home. They pay a $3 fare, again, up to that $21 fare limit. And then if they take a longer trip, and we have some people that do choose to take a longer trip. They may live a little further west and want to go to Arrowhead Mall. They can go there. There are no restrictions on what that service is to be used for now. So they can use it for shopping outside of the city, which we did not allow in the past under the old
system.
That's a benefit, And again, self-selection, self-determination, not worrying about having to book a week or 2 weeks or a day ahead gives them that instant opportunity to book a trip within 30 minutes to an hour of when they're going to take their trip.
Right. Let me ask you this about ride choice. Under the old system, they had a 30-minute window to pick somebody up. Is that still enforced, the 30-minute window for ride choice?
The ride choice contract that we tapped into really had no performance standards, but they do say that they expect, they will give you a pickup time so if you schedule an 8 o'clock pickup time, they are expected to be there by 8:30. But there's nothing that holds anybody hard and fast. And so the current ride choice, which again has led to issues with pickups and how long people are waiting and whatnot. And I think it's more on the ADA certified vehicles that can accommodate wheelchairs or walkers and the like. But Valley Metro will be going out for a new ride choice contract in the spring of 2018. And the expectation is when they go out for that contract, there will be some scope tightening and there will be some performance standards, not just for the cab companies, but also for the middle broker that holds the contract to bring all these different cab companies together.
Right.
So and to piggyback on that, the city of Phoenix is in the process of wrapping up their senior cab program. So they use a senior cab program currently very extensively, and I think we will look at their scope and some of their performance measures and look to build those into the new contract.
Phoenix has their own dial ride. They operate it themselves, correct?
They have their own dial ride, yes, but they also have a very heavily subsidized cab program for seniors. And they have a medical cab program. They have a senior to their various senior centers throughout the valley program. And I believe that there's a third one there, but it might just be for general seniors.
Right. Well, my conversations with Sheila Goldberg, and she's the head of the MJM in Baltimore. And she has told me that when you order a cab through the Ride Choice program, they should be there when they're asked to be there. And I guess they've had some problems in that area also, the cab being late. I don't think it's as bad as TransDev, at least not with my constituents, even with my own experience, because I use the system. And I think I had a lot of complaints from the people in Suprise because they know I use the system. And I'm very familiar with the system. And I know there are flaws. And I think one of the biggest flaws of TransDev is somebody in Phoenix trying to look out for the rides in Suprise. The Suprise, that's a local program for Suprise. It's a local system for Suprise. There should be somebody in Suprise overseeing that, not in Gilbert, not in Phoenix, but in Suprise. I think that's one of the problems. The other problem that I run into is that now, recently, Discount Cab has transferred all their telephone answering people to the Philippines, which personally I feel is ludicrous. First of all, there's a language barrier. Their English is not very well, and you have to spell out all the streets because they don't know what's going on in Surprise. So, and I understand that's not a violation of their contract, so we really can't do anything about it. I know it's a business move for Discount Cab, but I really think their service and their on time and even their locations have really taken a beating over this. I'm hoping it'll iron out eventually and things will get better. But my own personal feeling is I'm not that familiar with the rides in Phoenix or even the rides to the senior center in Holyoke. But my own personal feeling is that especially TransDev needs to do a lot better. Okay. Now, let's switch little gears a little bit and go back to your survey that you recently sent out to the riders. And between unsatisfactory and very unsatisfactory, it's either 53%, 52%?
That would be correct. And again, we asked a total of 9 questions of our riders. And again, we wanted to identify who is using the service and how they're using the service. We also wanted to focus on their experience with booking their trips, with taking their trips, with the drivers who perform the service, the actual drivers, and then we also asked them an issue, and that was, if you want to call it issue number 1, 2, and 3 was timeliness, both for TransDev and for paratransit, or for ride choice. Ride choice. And it's something that was a very critical component of the survey. And I think Valley Metro, we've shared the survey with them. Rob, who was at the work session last night, was able to, I think, understand the issue a little more in depth. And I think his intent, because remember, Rob's only been in that role now for about 8 weeks, so about 2 months, and he continues
only 8
to
weeks.
make.
I didn't realize he's only 8 weeks.
He's been with Valley Metro longer, but he hasn't been over the paratransit area, but for the last 8 weeks. So he's continuing to come in, and he's looking at how they do business, and trying to instill some streamlined processes, and also get data and perform. Because right now we had just gotten September's data about a week and a half ago, in order to put together the presentation about the performance.
Right.
And so he's looking to get us the data quicker. And again, once he has the data quicker in a quicker fashion, he can then start to hold the contractors, his staff and the contractors, accountable.
Right.
But when you don't have the data, it's really hard to hold anybody accountable.
You need the data.
Yeah.
So do they keep track, or does your office keep track of how many times there was a missed pickup or a wrong location or any kind of complaint like that?
So what we do is we rely on the data that does come from them in a monthly manner. When we do get it, we analyze it. As far as anything day to day, absolutely not, because we just have to look back on the current months. But as part of the presentation last night, we did, if you noticed, the TransDev on-time performance slide. The first month, their on-time performance was 58%. By the end of September, they were up to 71%. Again, both are bad numbers, but it does show that they're improving, and I think they'll continue to improve.
I don't know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
I was going to say I don't know what world that those surveys came back in, but it wasn't my world, and it wasn't the world of a lot of my constituents. They have a lot worse rating than 71% on time availability, and they tell a constituent when a constituent calls and asks where their ride is because it's already past due, and they say we're still looking for a wheelchair accessible vehicle for you. Mm-hmm. That doesn't give me a warm fuzzy feeling. Mm-hmm. And I really think a lot of the problem with TransDev is that those drivers are coming from Phoenix and Gilbert. They're not in and around Suprise, and that's why they rely on that 30-minute window. And I think TransDev abuses that, doesn't use that 30-minute window. It abuses that 30-minute window, and they rely on it ride after ride after ride. And that 30-minute window should be an occasional traffic tie-up or maybe some kind of mechanical problem, but not used for every single ride. And I noticed that's what you're doing, and it's not satisfactory at all. And I can't explain to my constituents anymore what we can do about it, because I have not gotten answers from TransDev or anyone about what's going to improve that on-time reliability. And that's why a lot of my constituents are just taking right choice, discount cab, and paying the difference. So we're hoping that will improve. Now,
absolutely. We're along with the riders that voiced their dissatisfaction pretty loudly. Our staff and obviously our city council elected officials clearly have expressed to Valley Metro that it needs to change. That we need to improve on timeliness. As Dave said, that's issues 1, 2, and 3, but various other issues as well to make this service much more user friendly.
Right. As stated last night on a council meeting from another council member, he doesn't agree with that 30-minute window, and I don't either. I actually more like 10 or 15 minutes to allow for traffic or something like that, but not 30 minutes.
Well, and to that point, they're not counted as being late until they're 30 minutes late. And so when we're talking about 30% or more late, that means 30% or more were more than 30 minutes past their scheduled time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So clearly unsatisfactory on anybody's measurement.
Exactly. So we can just keep our fingers crossed and hope it'll. Anything else to add about our transportation system? What's the future of our transportation system in Suprise?
Well,
I know it's bleak, but
well, I think the future really is. I don't know if you're aware or not, but we just released a transit framework study for the city. That study is actually being led by our community development department, but we will participate in it. We'll certainly give our input into the system, but what the purpose of that study is really about 3 or 4-fold, and that is one, what kind of transit services do our residents want? Mm-hmm. What are they really looking for? Do they want to be connected to the grid, or do they just want a circulator? Do they want to just continue to have this ride choice program? Are they not interested in having a connection to the regional grid? And then it also, because we can, you and I can talk and think and plan, but if our residents don't want it and aren't going to use it, should we really have it? The worst thing I could see running around our city is a bunch of empty buses with nobody riding them. So, and so we want to make sure that we're getting them the service that they're looking for, and again, the service, the transit industry is changing from the cab models with Uber and Lyft getting into the system, as well as all these Google and Apple and whatnot working with autonomous vehicles, and having these autonomous vehicles to transport people, which I think will probably be here in the next 5 to 7 years. So the other thing that the study will look at is the cost of the service, and how are we going to fund the costs associated with the service. Another, again, aspect of the program is going to look at, if we do want to connect to the grid, what are our priorities? Do we just need another express route, or do we need to make those grid connections to Arrowhead Mall or to Boswell Hospital or down south to Litchfield Park and Goodyear? And if we do need to make those grid connections, making sure that we have those grid buses on our radar and planned, so when the Valley Metro goes out for the next issuance of the Maricopa County transit tax, which is currently Prop 400, but I'm going to guess they're going to call it Prop 500, we will have some transit services in the loop planned to start. Now, that current tax is due to expire in 2026, so it's still 8 years away, but it's only 8 years away, and chances are they may have to go at least before the voters at least once and possibly twice to extend that tax.
Right. Now, is that a half-cent sales tax for
I
Proposition
believe so.
500?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And again, it just didn't pay for transit. It also paid for roads. So the city used a good portion of its money to fund the Belgrande overpass,
right,
as well as the construction of the 303.
And that's the part of the problem. When people talk about transit, they're usually talking about bridges and roads and not mass transportation.
Right.
So we have to define
Exactly.
what we're talking about. And I'm a firm believer that we need connectivity. We need to be connected to the grid outside of Suprise.
Sure.
And we can do all we can do to get people from Suprise to Suprise. But that's not enough. We can get them out to the grid so they have choices where to go and what time they want to go. And it's really a problem with the West Valley because the East Valley had such a big head start, and we're lagging behind. We're lagging way behind. For our population, we should have a bus system here at the very least. At the very least, the bus running up down Bell Road, so people can branch out. But I always wondered, like the city of Goodyear, how do they rate a circulator in their city when we can't even get a circulator in Suprise?
Well, actually, the circulator that Goodyear has is actually was established and expanded from the Avondale, and it's called the Avondale. It's not called the Avondale Zoom, but it's called the Zoom. And the Zoom was developed by Avondale to begin to provide an internal circulator for the city of Avondale. And then they expanded east to Tolleson to give them some transit services, and then now they're expanding west to Goodyear. And the reason they can do that is because they are, in the federal eyes, a designated area separate from the city of Phoenix. So they're their own small urban planning area, and so they get separate dedicated federal funds. Now, getting separate dedicated funds, federal funds, is great, but you still have to have your match to go with it. And so whether it's capital or operating, you still have to have your match. And that's what our transit framework study will help us identify. What is the necessary match for the city so that we can, have those transit services.
So we don't actually have a dollar amount yet?
No.
Okay.
No, that study actually, we just had the initial kickoff meeting with the consultant, and with our communications department here, there'll be a number of scheduled events and public outreach and input to make sure that we reach out to as many residents as possible to get their input. Again, what type of service are you really looking for?
Right.
So we can build it. And this will also drive our general plan down the road.
Okay. I'd like to change gears in a minute, but do you have anything else you want to add on? Have we missed anything? I hope I didn't put you on the spot too badly.
No.
Thanks very much for all the information. I'd like to turn to our Public Works Director, Mr. Mike Gent. I know, Mike, we had a good time 2 days ago. We went out and did some surveys of the roads, in particularly District 1, which is my district. I know we have a district that's been very bad in roads, and of course that's up on 163rd and northwest part of my district, particularly Dale Lane and some areas in there. I know that's a different problem. The problem is there we can't get the right-of-ways from the private landowners, so it's very difficult to do any kind of work on the roads. But I know you and your team just finished 163rd north of Joe Max, and that's one of the roads we checked out a couple of days ago, and did a real nice job, real good job. I'm really happy to see that, and I know the residents are. We still have a couple of complaints up there about the road, but I tell them it's not complete yet. I understand we're going to do some more topping of that in March to finish it off, and I appreciate that. If we can just get some rights of way up there, and I don't understand why the private landowners don't sign up rights of way, because it'll make their property more valuable if people can get to it. But that's a whole other problem as far as doing the actual road itself. I know with the bond that passed, and I really thank the residents for voting for that bond. It's going to help a lot for our roads. And I'm kind of a selfish guy. I look at District 1, what's it going to do for District 1? And, of course, the big bottleneck down on Greenway and Northwest Parkway is there's no light there, and it's very difficult to make a left turn coming out of Northwest Ranch. However, that's in the bond, and it was approved, so we are going to get a actual interchange there. We're going to line up Saraville with Northwest Ranch Parkway at Greenway and actually have a light there. Is that correct?
That is the plan. A full intersection there at where Northwest Ranch Parkway currently dead ends at Greenway. We're working with the property owner to the south because, of course, aligning the road will involve them and their rights to develop their property. But we're very optimistic in our discussions so far that will happen. And certainly providing safe movements in all directions there is a priority for the residents that have been there a long time and really struggle to get out on the Greenway road, especially during the peak traffic periods.
Right. And I also appreciate Bell Point, which is completed also.
Yeah.
And that's right near my home, so it was really nice. I did have some complaints from the people in Desert Oasis and someone in Santi about when you guys were working on Grand Avenue on 160-30, having trouble getting out. But as I told them, a couple of days of hardship, I think, is well worth the work that was done, particularly on Grand Avenue. I guess the bulk of that was done by ADOT.
Yeah, Grand Avenue is an ADOT facility, and so the work is certainly performed by ADOT contractors, although we coordinate real closely with them because it impacts our city in a big way.
Right.
That's kind of the paradox of road work. Everybody wants to have nice roads, but when it's actually being performed, it is inconvenient. And we really appreciate the patience and support of our residents who slow down for the workers that are out there and drive cautiously, even choose alternative routes when possible to allow them to perform the work as quickly as possible and hopefully remove that inconvenience. So you mentioned the work on 163rd Avenue. It is a multi-phase project. The road itself is a typical rural road. It's not a fully engineered city road. It was just asphalt that was installed over native soils, and so it's particularly vulnerable to the volume and the weight of traffic going over it, and it deteriorates relatively quickly. And 163rd between Joe Max and Dixie-Letta, which is our northern city limit, hadn't received the maintenance needed for many years. And so the first phase of this project was actually replacing some of that completely damaged asphalt.
Right.
Included some pulverization where we removed all of the asphalt and put in new asphalt, included many repairs where we were able to leave a small layer of asphalt and put a fresh durable layer on top of that. And then what we just completed this last week was a chip seal. So we installed a chip seal over the entire length from Joe Max to Dixie-Letta. And it's kind of a bigger chips. The aggregate that's used in it is bigger chips, and it looks a little rough compared to what you see on most roadways. Over the next couple of months, that'll smooth out a little bit, and then towards the end of March, we'll actually come in with a second chip seal using a smaller chip. And that smaller aggregate will actually bond really well with that larger chip that's in there currently, providing a durable and a much smoother and probably the best surface that they've had up there in well over a decade.
Yeah, they are so looking forward to it. I know that.
Yes.
So like I tell the residents up there, come back and see me in March. One resident said that for me to drive on 163rd, how bad it was, and so we did it.
We did.
And thanks for going along on that ride, and it was very interesting. And it was good to have a conversation with a road expert, so I knew what we were looking at.
Well, and it's worth noting that the pavement preservation is citywide. So we are, in roads like that are in desperate need, but we're also in regular neighborhoods. Surprise Farms is receiving significant pavement preservation work this year. You mentioned Northwest Ranch Parkway and also Bell Point. There's many neighborhoods throughout District 1 and throughout the city, really, that are getting much needed pavement preservation. And so whether it's a small residential street or a large arterial that's critically important as the one way in and out for many of the residents, we're paying attention to it, and we're trying to do our best to help traffic move safely and efficiently through our city.
Yeah. I know all the roads throughout the city are very important, but those poor people up on 163rd by Northwest District have really been deprived of good roads for a long time. And of course, the flip side of that is they want to live in the country, and they certainly do. So there are some drawbacks with that. But the main problem, like I said before, is that people that have their property up there don't want to give the right-of-ways away to the city.
Well, and it's worth mentioning that many, if not most, of the property owners are willing to and already have dedicated right-of-ways where needed. But there does remain a group of property owners that aren't interested in doing that.
So that prevents us from, again, continuous property to do the roads.
Yeah, in order to build a road, we need continuous right-of-way that allows us to not only build it, but to maintain it once we have it built. Okay. And so whenever those gaps exist where the property owner refuses to dedicate right-of-way, it stops our progress.
Let me switch gears again a little bit and talk about something else in District 1, which is very important. And that's the 304, the Firehouse 304. Of course, the bond passed, which again is great, and I do thank the residents again for that. Because those poor folks, they were in a temporary facility down toward Grand Avenue in 163rd. It was temporary for 15 years. And of course, when those firefighters got the chance to move up to an upgraded facility, a double wide instead of a single wide, they were delighted. And of course, they really liked the big workout room they had along with the new temporary firehouse. So I'm really excited, as is the residents up in that area, to get a brand new firehouse, which they were long overdue for. Even more than the firefighters deserve a nice place to work from, the citizens deserve a firehouse they can rely on for help if, God forbid, their house catches on fire. And our firefighters in Suprise do a great job. They really do. And they were very patient up there waiting for their firehouse. So what can you tell me about the 304? What's the great thing about the 304, besides finally getting up to that area, which is going to grow like crazy? We all know that in the next 5 or 10 years, there's going to be thousands of homes up there.
Absolutely. So yeah, providing that level of service that's needed up there is the driving factor. And we really appreciate the voters of Surprise supporting this project and helping make it possible. Beyond just being able to provide the service that's needed up there, this will actually be a significant community feature. It really will help identify the area as part of Surprise and look very nice as part of the community there. Our teams are working on the projects already. So our project management team, our partners in the finance department, procurement-wise, community development plays a significant role, and then obviously the fire department plays a significant role in what they need and how we can best meet their needs. So the work is really underway without having spent money because bonds haven't been sold yet. But the design, the preliminary things that get us to the point of design are underway. And then the actual completion of construction we can expect in the winter of 2020. So it'll take us a couple of years to get from here to where the firefighters can move into their new facility. It's also worth noting that we're actually going to relocate the station.
I was going to mention that.
A ways south from where the temporary station is currently to what would be the southwest corner of San Ysidro and 163rd. Yeah. And that'll allow the fire station to not have to compete with the busy traffic that exists, that will exist someday at the Happy Valley 163rd intersection.
Yeah, Happy Valley Road and 163rd is going to be a very busy intersection someday. It doesn't seem like it would be now, but it's going to be.
Yes.
So now is the 304 going to be the biggest fire station we have in Surprise?
It will be a battalion level fire station, and yes, because it's going to be serving such a wide area up there, it will be the largest footprint. We'll also have an ambulance that'll be stationed out of there, as well as several other teams that meet emergency service needs. And so it will be a very nice facility that'll support our teams well, and it will have a large footprint.
We'll also have a ladder company there.
Yes.
Good. Anything else you want to tell us about the Public Works in District 1 while we're at it, Mike?
Well, all of our projects, citywide benefit residents in all districts because, of course, even though they might, live in the western side, say where, Bell Point, like we talked about earlier, or in the northwest side off of 163rd, most of our residents use Bell Road, and they use, come down to the, school or work or whatnot, and so all of our projects in the city are going to be important. So you mentioned Greenway Road. We also have Waddell Road.
Right.
One of the exciting parts about those projects is that they are adjacent to land that hasn't been developed yet. We're really excited over the course of this next year to see what these projects do as far as accelerating the commercial development of those areas, and hopefully bring some more options for us to spend our money here in Suprise from a retail point of view, from a restaurant point of view. And we've had some exciting additions to our city this last year. Raising Cane's opened up a week ago. We have In-N-Out that'll be here in a few months. And really, all the incredible businesses that we have, I can't too many to name, but we're so excited about them and meeting with their business owners and how excited they are to be in Surprise. Great place to be.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We've got a lot of business opening up, and we like to give them all kinds of support we can give them. I want to touch on, I know we're running along today on this council conversation, but I know I'm keeping from your busy day, but bear with me a few more minutes. I want to cover one more subject. And that is the lights along Bell Road. There's a project going on. We're going to change the lights so everybody hit a green light on Bell Road every time of the day, correct?
Most residents feel like we personally follow them around and turn the traffic signals red just for them. But we have a adaptive signal technology project. It's actually multi-jurisdiction, involves multiple cities as well as the county and the state along Bell Road, all the way from Surprise to Scottsdale. So over the next few months, we'll actually be replacing and upgrading the traffic signals at each one of our intersections on Bell Road. The project will be complete in June of 2018, but that will allow us to adapt to changing situations much more quickly. So when a pedestrian crosses the street right now, it throws the timing off considerably, and it takes as much as 15 minutes to recover from that. The same thing happens when a fire engine or a police officer preempts the signal. So we'll be able to adapt to those kind of circumstances. We'll also be able to synchronize and optimize the system to allow for drivers to hit multiple green lights and travel Bell Road much more efficiently going forward. So this is long overdue technology upgrade for our signals. That residents will be able to notice a significant difference right away. Some of those signals will be complete prior to spring training. We're starting from the eastern edge and working towards Bullard, where much of our spring training traffic comes from, and we'll do just as many as we can up until the end of February, which at that point we'll stop the work and allow for spring training to happen with minimal interruptions, and then once spring training concludes, we'll complete the project all the way to our western city limit.
Now I understand it's going down the whole full length of Bell Road.
Yes.
From here all the way down to Scottsdale.
Yes.
Be pretty fantastic.
I'm not saying Bell Road will ever drive like the 101, but it can do a lot better than it's doing today, and our teams are really excited to have that technology available and to help commuters and riders get to where they want to go much more quickly. Yeah,
let me stretch this out just one more if I can. Your recycling program in Surprise, is it working? Is it worth it? What can you tell us about that? I know the residents have to separate their trash from the recycling. They have 2 containers out front, correct?
That's right. So, and not all residents in District 1 or around the city have city trash service, but many do. And for those that do, they have a 90-gallon trash container and a 90-gallon recycling container. And clean recycling makes the city money and saves ratepayer dollars, so we can stabilize our rates. When contamination is placed in the recycling, it devalues the whole load of recycling and actually costs the city considerably more than had they just thrown it away. And so we really want to encourage clean recycling, which will help save our residents money and keep our rates as low as possible as we move forward. Recycling is good for lots of reasons. As far as improving the environment and creating a sustainable future for us. But even if all you're interested in is saving money for your family, recycling is a smart way to go. And we certainly encourage even residents that aren't serviced by the city of Suprise to consider how they can responsibly reduce their waste and recycle those products that are available to be recycled.
Right. Like you said, there are a lot of communities that don't have the city program of trash collection. I live in Arizona Traditions because we have a private, but we still have a recycling system. We have a day set aside for recycling to put out and one day for the trash.
And the more you recycle, the less you put in your trash, the lower your costs will be on going into the future.
Right. Okay, one of you gentlemen have anything else to add before we close the program?
Thank you for having us, Councilmember.
I think it was a great program. I think our viewing audience learned a few things. I hope they did. So thanks very much for being here. I really appreciate taking out your time, your busy day. So if you have any questions about today's topics or have other questions about our city, please reach out to me. I also invite you to visit my website for information about my monthly meetings. And if you haven't already signed up for my monthly newsletter, please do so. And I can be reached by email, by my private number, which is on my cards, direct line, and you can reach me at City Hall. So give me a call, and my meetings for the residents, second Friday of the month at Arizona Traditions Retreat Community Center, and everyone is welcome. Thanks for joining us.